Hi, I'm Reverend Jim Harden. This is Proof of Life. Follow this particular show on all your favorite podcast platforms. Like and share and comment and tell your friends. Western civilization has regressed into a moral Wild West. And I think we need to have a come to Jesus meeting. And when I heard that Joe Biden, after the State of the Union address last Thursday, made mention of a come to Jesus meeting, I thought, wow, maybe I do have something in common with Joe Biden. But then I realized what he was saying. He was actually having a conversation with some of his compatriots, and he was talking about Benjamin Netanyahu and the war that is being waged by Hamas against the forces of civilization. Benjamin Netanyahu basically said a couple of weeks after I was lambasted by many people for saying something which I'll repeat in just a minute. Benjamin Netanyahu said that generally speaking, people don't understand what's going on in the Middle East, because what's going on in the Middle East is representative of what's going on all across the globe, and that is that there are forces of barbarism seeking to destroy the forces of civilization, or the forces of barbarism. Just so you know, barbarism is a real thing. And what barbarism represents is a group of people that have no context for behaving in a virtuous fashion. There is no commonly held understanding of the dignity of mankind, of justice, of wisdom, of temperance, etc. I mean, there is no way for them, these groups of people, to understand what is right and wrong in terms of how a society should flourish and can flourish. What they seek and and the only thing they can do is dismantle and destroy. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. But they're seeking to dismantle and destroy the nation-state system. Now, Israel represents the nation-state system based on a Judeo-Christian free market framework. Okay, Israel represents this nation-state system within the Middle East wherein most of the religious order of Islam rejects this nation-state system. In fact, one of the reasons why you have this organization called ISIS, say, for example, is the Islamic State, is because they're saying they self-identify as rejecting the current global nation-state system. We're the Islamic State. We're not a part of the global kind of secular nation-state system that was established with the Westphalian Treaty in 1648. And so when Benjamin Netanyahu says, oh, Hamas needs to be utterly destroyed, this is a terrorist organization seeking the destruction not just of Israel in waves of fourth generation warfare, wave after wave after wave, and each wave, not just reducing Israel's resolve or the nation state's resolve, but also each wave acts as a recruitment ploy to engage more kind of weak-minded, disaffected individuals to the cause of dismantling and destroying that particular nation-state or the nation-state system. And so, when Benjamin Netanyahu said these are the forces of barbarism against the forces of civilization, he meant it. And when I said, back on October 7th, when Hamas attacked Israel, I said, look, Hamas is essentially the same thing as Antifa. Antifa is a global, international, multinational, Marxist insurgency dedicated to the same mission as Hamas, which is the dismantling and destruction of the current nation-state system to pave the way for a one world empire. And in the case of Antifa, they represent it as a Marxist Maoist communism. And so everybody was up in arms saying, "Oh, you can't say this." Even my friends, that support Israel were like, "You can't do this, Jim. You can't say that because you're just capitalizing on Israel's misfortune." But that's not true. What I said, I meant, and that is the pro-abortion Antifa, transgender Antifa, environmentalist Antifa. These are all the same people, and they even have the same dress code. They have the same philosophy. They use the same fourth-generation warfare tactics. They have the same recruitment tactics. They have the same wave after wave Al-Aqsa flood kind of concepts of fomenting their base. And so when pro-abortion President Joe Biden, after the State of the Union address, after he shook his fist at his Republican opponents and mocked them in a very unpresidential way, made light of the fact that he and Netanyahu need to have a come to Jesus moment, come to Jesus meeting. He and Bibi, again, very unpresidential. And I thought to myself, yeah, we do need to have a come to Jesus moment. We do need to come to Jesus, because the only way that society, the nation state system, will survive. And by the way, America represents the foundation of the nation state system in the world today. That's why one of the reasons why America is under attack, philosophically as well as physically. We're actually attacking ourselves. We've got an ideological cancer within ourselves that manifests itself in abortion, in IVF, in transgender and hormone therapy, and whatever. But so, we've got to have a come to Jesus moment. We've got to return to God, because the only way for a free constitutional rule of law to survive is not by creating more laws, not by creating a new vision of humanity and then trying to forge a way into this humanity, which has been done before in the 20th century, which resulted in the bloodshed of millions and millions and millions of people. The bloodiest century in the history of mankind was fueled by secular, atheistic, communist regimes in Russia, China, Italy, Germany. I mean, you name it. And the philosophical fog that drove it was this kind of Darwinian evolutionary theory that merged with Marxism, and it was this fog had seeped into the United States as well back in the turn of the century and into the 1920s and 30s, and then of course World War II came along with the logical conclusion, the logical outcome of these philosophies being seen with Hitler. What's the logical conclusion to eugenics philosophy that says that we need to enhance and speed up the evolutionary process of the human race? Well, the logical outcome is the destruction of certain classes or types of people: the weak, the elderly, the disabled, any class or ethnicity that you think is undesirable. Say, Gypsies, Christians, Jews. That's what they did. It was a massive kind of what they call cleansing, ethnic cleansing, as to arrive at this Aryan race. And this was embraced by, and is currently being embraced, by the way, by pro-abortion transgender Democrats. They have embraced a eugenics philosophy, and the eugenics philosophy was put on display during the State of the Union address last Thursday, when Biden celebrated Kate Cox for killing her trisomy 18 baby that had this terrible genetic anomaly. Just because a human being has a genetic anomaly does not give us a right, or even the right to kill the child, but then celebrate the killing of that child, and then. It doesn't make, that's barbaric. It's barbaric. It's the forces of barbarism against the forces of civilization. And the forces of barbarism are saying the forces of civilization, who want to protect all these people, are the bad guys. Christians who say that all people are made in the image of God and are equally valuable, deserving of protection and blessing under the law, are now the enemy because we are trying to withhold, Kate Cox's right to destroy her own baby. That is That is classic master class thinking, right? I'm the master, you're the slave. I own you, and I can create you, and I can own you, and I can destroy you at my will. That is I mean, that takes us right back to the plantation. Joe Biden is the master of the plantation, and everybody who goes along with these policies about IVF, abortion, transgenderism, even a ceasefire in Gaza is just submitting, tacitly approving of Biden as the master on the plantation. I'm telling you right now, don't be deceived. We are buying and selling humanity. We are buying and selling children. We are buying and selling minors. Sex trafficking, abortion, and in vitro fertilization are all the same basic thing: human trafficking. You're creating humans for your own desires. You're purchasing them. It costs lots of money, but the rich and the powerful can afford it. And you're destroying them. You destroy scores of embryos just to get one baby. I'm not kidding. That's how it works. Babies are destroyed in 4 different points in the IVF process, and all these Christians are like, "Oh, and by the way, we should stop. We should stop." Anytime you've got a pro-abortion, rabidly Marxist, communistic, social democrat who loves the idea of IVF and is all of a sudden pro-family, you've got to stop. Just stop and ask yourself, why are they all of a sudden so pro-family? What is it about IVF that they just that fits perfectly within their little narrative? I mean, it's like Mr. Burns on The Simpsons. Oh, it's all going according to plan, Smithers. I mean, that's what when I see Joe Biden, saying let's promote IVF, which he did the State of the Union. I gotta stop and say, wait a second. Christians are being duped by this. Politicians are just in the fog on this one. IVF is the moral, bioethical, medical Wild West. We should not be going around treating humanity like some kind of product to be manufactured. We go around selling eggs and selling sperm and putting them together and buying babies and having surrogates, and you're creating, thousands of embryos. The process of creating the embryos is dystopian. You create these embryos, you put them through a kind of an analysis. Okay, how many of these embryos fit our criteria? The embryos that don't fit the criteria, we destroy. We send to elsewhere. By the way, when does a human being start, according to science? A human being begins the moment when an egg is fertilized by a sperm. The female gamete and the male gamete meet and form instantaneously that unique set of DNA. That's the basis. It's the foundational basis of an individual. That is the moment when a new individual is created. Fertilization. Okay, we used to call that conception, but the reason we stopped calling it conception is because pro-abortion zealots at the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology basically attempted to change the definition of conception so that they could continue to abort children and not call it abortion. They could call it contraception. So they changed the definition of conception from fertilization to implantation, the moment an embryo implants in a mother's uterus. So until implantation occurs, conception hasn't happened. But the reality is, conception actually happens in the fallopian tubes when the sperm meets the egg and the egg's fertilized, and we got a new individual at that moment, an embryo. And then the embryo comes down the fallopian tubes into the uterus and implants in the uterine lining, and the baby continues to grow. Doesn't start growing, continues on his or her path to maturation. And all that baby needs is, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, nutrition, hydration, and shelter. That is the exact same thing that you and I still need. And by the way, you and I are not done maturing, and our DNA still controls the maturation process, our maturation process all the way until natural death. There is no difference. That child at the moment of fertilization is fully and completely human, just like the Supreme Court said in Alabama in an 8-1 decision 2 weeks ago. They said a child is a child, no matter where they are, no matter what their level, their point in maturity, no matter what the characteristics are for their maturity, whether they have a heartbeat or don't have, it doesn't matter. Child is a child. We have to come back to that understanding, because IVF destroys embryos, and they cull them. They this weird dystopian kind of criteria. These don't fit the criteria. You want your baby made to order. You want your little designer baby. Here are the set of embryos we think can be your designer baby. Bing. I mean, it's just like, what kind of salesmanship is this? I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Oh, and by the way, somehow or other, this multi-billion-dollar IVF industry was able to get to the Alabama legislature and the Alabama governor within a week and a half to develop, promote, and pass and sign a bill that insulates all these IVF fertility clinics from any criminal liability for destroying embryos. Absolutely amazing. You know how long and how much money it takes to get a bill passed? And this is some knee-jerk reaction. All of a sudden it gets through. Something fishy is going on here, and it needs to stop. IVF needs to stop. It is unethical. Now, I know people out there saying, well, I have an IVF grandbaby and I have an IVF child, and, everybody has the right to have a family. I'm just saying it to you. I'm not saying that the child is bad. I'm not saying that your grandchild is evil. I'm saying to you that the IVF process is unethical. How many babies were killed in order to get that one child? Because the first step in the process, embryos are culled. C-U-L-L-E-D. I said this before. Killed. The second step is where they take the best, so to speak, and they insert them in the mother's uterus to see how many will implant. Many of them do not survive that process. Okay, that's the second point of destruction. The third point is where the ones that are the embryos that are unused are frozen, and many of them don't survive the freezing process. But then the fourth point at which the embryos are destroyed is with reduction, where there's too many embryos that actually find a hospitable place to implant in the woman's uterus, and they begin growing, and there's too many of them, and so they have to reduce the number, which is what we would typically understand as abortion. Terrible all the way around. This is the bioethical Wild West. The core kind of concept for the bioethical Wild West is, if you can do it, then you should do it. And that, of course, is wrong. So we do need to have a come to Jesus moment. As a nation, coming to Jesus means understanding what it means to be human under God. As a nation, coming to Jesus means protecting all people equally under the law without qualification, without partiality. Understanding that Jesus said that, when asked by a lawyer, who's our neighbor? We need to love our neighbor as ourselves. Yeah, but who's our neighbor? Jesus gave the parable of the Good Samaritan. We don't get to choose who our neighbor is. Our neighbor is the one who is weak and vulnerable, beaten and left for dead by this culture, being used and abused. Our job is to be radically responsible for our neighbor, so that our neighbor is not abused and misused and enslaved and entrapped and all the rest. And yet somehow or other, pro-abortion politicians in charge of the Democratic Party are all for human trafficking in every form. If we can buy and sell humanity, that's big money. You're buying and selling babies in IVF. You're buying control over the babies' lives through abortion, and of course, sex trafficking is purchasing humanity for your own appetites. And by the way, abortion is the glove. I've said this before. I'm going to keep saying it. Abortion is the glove that covers the crime of sex trafficking. What is the result of sex trafficking? Pregnancy. Okay. So what happens when a woman who's being trafficked gets pregnant? Well, the handlers, the abusers, the rapists, they want to keep their product making money. This is awful. It's absolutely terrible. And America is the primary consumer of sex trafficking. Primary consumer worldwide. We've lost 85,000 minor immigrants coming across the border that we know, according to attorneys general, law enforcement agents, I mean, all across the country, we know they're being shipped all points north of the border of Texas to be trafficked, sex trafficked. And who's covering up for that? The abortion industry is covering up for it. Why isn't the abortion industry up in arms? Where is the abortion industry? And why aren't they saying, hey, we need to protect women. We need to protect women's rights. Women are being trafficked. Not a single word. Quiet as crickets. And yet the people that are standing up and saying, no, we need to stop this are the pro-lifers. We're out there, bold as a lion, broad as daylight, saying this has got to stop. Abortion has to stop. Abortion represents the harming of women. Not only does abortion cause future, preterm deliveries, but it causes breast cancer. I mean, we know that there's certain hormonal contraception, like this going over the counter right now called O-pill, because they're afraid that mifepristone, the chemical abortion drug, is going to be taken off the market, and women are not going to be able to get abortion to solve their pregnancies anymore. So they're going to give these girls O-pill for $20 over the counter. O-pill causes liver cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer, stroke, heart attack, and we're just going to sell these drugs like Tylenol over the counter to minor girls. No toxicology studies, nothing. How does this impact their reproductive health? We have no idea. Except for the fact that it causes cancer, and mom and dad won't know. Anyway, we need to have a come to Jesus moment in America. Just there's so much going on. Like, for example, Veterans Affairs. There's a new Senate bill out regarding IVF for the government to provide to cover the cost of IVF treatments for military personnel and their relationships. And that includes gay personnel as well as transgender personnel, to offset the purchase of eggs, of sperm, of the process of creating embryos, offset the cost of placing those embryos in surrogate wombs. I mean, this is buying and selling humanity, and now the government's in the business. Western civilization has regressed to a moral Wild West. Interestingly enough, Vice President Kamala Harris, probably as I'm recording this right now, Vice President Kamala Harris is in the Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota, visiting an abortion clinic, Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood, of course, is the largest abortion business on the globe. Planned Parenthood was the whistleblower came out of Planned Parenthood out of Arizona saying that Planned Parenthood is intentionally engaging in sex trafficking cover-ups. A journalistic expose happened late last year, November, December timeframe, where they caught Planned Parenthood representatives in Missouri, essentially admitting to the fact that they're covering up sex trafficking and the sex trafficking of minors, and they have plans and they execute plans on a daily basis to bring these minors across state borders in violation of the Mann Act, to get abortions without parental consent or knowledge. And so Missouri Attorney General filed a lawsuit against Planned Parenthood. I believe it was last week, saying that Planned Parenthood was conspiring to cover up, the sex trafficking crimes. Again, like I said before, the abortion industry is the glove that covers the fingerprints of the sex trafficking syndicates. Mifepristone is the chemical abortion drug that is being put on the market by CVS and Walgreens now this month, just 2 weeks ahead of oral arguments that are going to be heard by the Supreme Court to take the drug off the market. This is the Biden administration's way to get into big corp and to make it look like when this drug is put on the market by CVS and Walgreens, it makes CVS and Walgreens abortion clinics, and it's being rolled out in Pennsylvania, New York, California, Illinois, Massachusetts. And when the FDA, when the Supreme Court hopefully tells the FDA to go back to the drawing board and do their job on the safety and efficacy of this drug, it'll take it off the market. And when they take it off the market sometime in June or July, the Biden administration is going to use that to feed right into their talking points about abortion to get reelected. And their talking points about abortion are twofold. Number one, conservative Republican types want to rob women of their reproductive rights. That's why you got Vice President Kamala Harris going to for the first time, a sitting president is touring an abortion clinic. Why is she doing that? Because she wants to raise awareness around this mantra that women's reproductive health, women's reproductive rights are being robbed from them, stolen from them by these conservative states. Not true, of course. So mifepristone is put on the market by CVS and Walgreens in partnership with the Biden administration. This is classic fascism, by the way. Government colluding with big government, pharma, in this case, pharmaceutical companies and pharmacies, two biggest in the nation. And then the SCOTUS comes along and says, take it off the market so that FDA can do their job, which they didn't do during the Clinton administration or during the Biden administration, attempting to illegally deregulate it. And then they're going to cry foul. Oh, see, look, you're robbing. See, they're taking it off the shelves. They're robbing women of their reproductive rights. The second thing they do is they say, look, they're conservative, Republican, pro-lifer types are trying to harm women and destroy their lives and their life. They're basically their health. By not giving them an abortion, by not giving them access to abortion. Like poor Kate Cox in Texas, who couldn't kill her trisomy 18 baby. They frame that as, this is pro-life strategy and ideas that are being implemented in Texas that are harming women's lives and reproductive health. Of course, it's not true. It's not true. Carrying a trisomy 18 baby to term is no different than carrying a regular baby to term that doesn't have a genetic anomaly. And by the way, trisomy 18 is not a death sentence. Just ask Rick Santorum's 15-year-old trisomy 18 daughter. It's just that these people want these babies made to order. They don't want to have to sacrifice. They don't want to have to serve their children. They don't want to have to give up something. Children are supposed to are just basically consumer products to enhance my self-actualization. I want my boy. I want my girl. I want my twins. I want my me. It's all crap. We need a come to Jesus moment. Jesus said, anyone who causes one of these little ones of mine to stumble, it would be better if a heavy millstone, one of those big round concrete donuts, were hung around your neck and you would be cast into the sea. And for a Jew to be cast into the sea, lost at sea, is a fate worse than death. Oblivion, okay? Forgotten by God. And so I think about America. I think about what America represents in the world today, in the globe. America is a global leader. Like it or not, America is the primary kind of bulwark for the current global nation-state system, grounded in the Judeo-Christian free market. And we are leading the world in terms of not just philosophy of government, but also in terms of economy. We are a merchant nation. And so when I think about the buying and selling of humanity and the barbaric philosophies that are embraced by many people on both sides of the aisle, the Democrat aisle and the Republican aisle, whatever, and the buying and selling, the trafficking of humanity in abortion, IVF, and sex trafficking, it makes me think of the book of Revelation, where it talks about Babylon at the end and how Babylon the Great is a metaphor for the nation or the people that are essentially ruling or having the most influence on the globe at the time of when this age is wrapped up. And let me just read it to you really quickly. It says this, and the kings of the earth, the leaders, who committed acts of immorality and lived sensuously with her, that is Babylon, interacting with America, I'm just using America as a stand-in here, will weep and lament over her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance because of the fear of her torment, saying, woe, woe. That's bad news. Woe means bad news to you in the worst possible way. Woe, woe, woe. Bad news to you in the worst possible way. Woe, woe, the great city Babylon, the strong city. For in 1 hour your judgment has come, and the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore. I mean, we are a consumer nation. And if you want to look at consumer nation, we actually, of all the pharmaceuticals that are created across the globe, America consumes 80% of them. Did you know that? America consumes 80% of all the pharmaceuticals in the world. We're fat, we're lazy, we're not happy, but we want our world made to order. We want our children made to order, and we'll do anything. We look at other human beings as objects for our own personal gratification. That is the basis for same-sex marriage. That is the basis of the Obergefell case in the Supreme Court in 2016. Hey, whatever makes you happy. Marry whatever you want. That is the basic unit. That is a total undermining of civilized order, because the basic unit of civilized order is not the individual and their relationship to government. It's the marriage. It's the man and the woman coming together to create the next generation of citizen. Well, anyway, it goes on. This is Revelation chapter 18, and he talks about all the cargoes that are sold. Gold and silver and precious stones and pearls, and this is apocalyptic way of saying, this nation has it all. This people not only have everything, they can consume everything, they can sell anything, but they have control and influence over the entire globe. Okay? And what are they selling? Oh, basically everything. Wheat and cattle and sheep and cargoes, horses and chariots, basically power, and slaves and human lives. This is Revelation 18, verse 13. Slaves and human lives. Then, going further down, bad things are happening. Babylon is laid waste because of judgment has come upon her. Then a strong angel took up a stone like a great millstone. Remember what I just said about millstone? What did Jesus say about a millstone? Whose neck is a millstone hung around? People who mistreat children. Millstone, and threw it into the sea, saying, so will Babylon, the great city, be thrown down with violence. I'm telling you, we've got a problem in America with the trafficking of humanity, and we don't think anything of it when it comes to IVF. And the lamp of Babylon will not shine, and your merchants, for your merchants were the great men of the earth. Your merchants were the great men of the earth. Who do we elect president? Well, we want to see. We want to make sure our next president has got a good business head. Good business head. How many times did you hear that 4 years ago, 5 years ago? We need somebody who understands the economy. Well, if you don't have the ability to make good decisions about how you spend your money, I think the economy is secondary. Money follows morality. And he says, your merchants were great men of the earth because all the nations were deceived by your sorcery. All the nations were deceived by your sorcery. By the way, the Greek word for sorcery there is pharmakia. You know what? Pharmakia, which is where we get our word for pharmacy or pharmaceutical. And that's translated here in this apocalyptic piece of literature as sorcery. Interesting. And what kind of pharmakia do we use to destroy and or make and sell humanity? IVF and mifepristone. It's a chemical abortion drug. We look at medicine as a god. We look at medicine as a way to we bow to medicine to do whatever it needs to do to keep us healthy, to keep us strong, to extend our lives, as if medicine can extend our lives. to save us. Medicine's a savior for us. We'll do anything. I mean, we're so afraid of death that dear God, we can't go to church because we can't celebrate the resurrection and the defeat of death because we might get sick. Do you know that the COVID shutdowns happened, and the first Sunday the COVID shutdowns happened was Easter Sunday, and most of the churches in America shut down? What does that say? It says we need a come to Jesus moment. People are not believing in Jesus anymore. They're believing in medicine now. They're believing in government now. They're believing in the economy now. They're believing in, this is why they're so worried about their bank accounts and their careers and their, college education. We need to start worrying about people. We need to start worrying about our own souls. We need to start being concerned about the judgment that's impending, that's coming. I mean, if America does happen to represent a type of Babylon, if not Babylon itself here in this apocalyptic literature in Revelation, we need to recognize that we are acting like Babylon. We are buying and selling. We are trafficking in human lives, and God, Jesus, God in the flesh, does not take kindly to that. And if the church and pastors in the church don't have anything to say about a trafficking of human lives, except insofar as we shouldn't say much because, well, it's too political. If we don't have something to say about the moral degradation of our country and the protection of all human lives, then our theology and our faith is worthless. Worthless. We might as well just close the church's door and hang brothel over the top of it. I mean, I don't get it. Where are we? But there's always a remnant. There's always a remnant. There's always a faithful remnant. There's always the 7,000 that have not yet bowed the knee. There's always the remnant that God is protecting. God doesn't need 20,000 soldiers to accomplish His will. He, like Gideon, He told Gideon, they're gonna think that they did all this. We just need 300. There's a reason why Jesus said, wide is the road that leads to destruction, and narrow is the way that leads to life, and there are few who find it. It's in some ways a little depressing, that truth, but what I can say is that God is going to restore the world. Jesus Christ was the beginning of the restoration of mankind. Jesus Christ and His resurrection was the beginning of the end of sin and death. And at His return, every last vestige of sin, whether it's suffering, injustice, sickness, you name it, will be done away with. And death will be reversed. And those that are found in Him will rise and will be given their reward. Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful with a little. I will give you much. Enter into the joy of your master. So not only will He increase our responsibility if we remain faithful to Him now in this very adverse world, but He will increase not just our responsibility in the next kind of new heaven and new earth era, but He will also increase our joy exponentially. I can't imagine what that would be like. And so we look forward to that moment. I really do. There are times when I'm going somewhere and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, do I really have to say this again? Do I really have to deal with this issue again?" It seems so surreal that we have to keep telling the nation to stop trafficking in human lives, stop creating people like they were some sort of consumer product to be bought and sold in IVF. Stop killing innocent preborn boys and girls through abortion for the sake of your career, for the sake of your financial stability, for the sake of your relationships, for the sake of whatever. Stop. And we, at some point in time, as Christians, we need to stand up straight, because our redemption is drawing near. Jesus said, look, all kinds of stuff is going to happen to you in the end times. People are going to say all kinds of evil about you falsely. Even your friends, even your family, even people you go to church with are going to say all kinds of evil about you falsely, because you're standing up for what is right, what is good. You're uncovering the evil deeds of darkness, as we are tasked to do. And look in Ephesians chapter 4. And but he says, stand up straight and look up, for your redemption draws near. And I think as Christians, it's time for us to stand up a little straighter, to take courage in the fact that there's great injustice, but we serve a greater God. There's great sin, but we serve a great Savior. That while we in fact are wrestling with our own sin in our own lives, not to mention the spiritual evil realm and the sin of others, and et cetera, we are a people at war, because war has been declared upon what is good and what is right. War has been declared upon God, and those who represent Jesus in the flesh, God, are going to be treated as such, second-class citizens or worse. And that's what we see happening now. And it's not going to go away. It's not going to get easier. It's not going to get better until Jesus comes, and then it'll be done. So more to come. There's so much going on now, but that's what I had to say. We need. I agree with Joe Biden in the sense that we as a nation, although he didn't say as a nation, we need to come to Jesus meeting with. We need to meet with Jesus again, and understand what is actually happening. Let's connect the dots with what's going on globally and how that manifests itself in America today. We have a responsibility as believers. We have a responsibility to our country, because God has sovereignly placed us in a nation with a governmental system by the people and for the people. We have a responsibility as Christians, even if we weren't in that form of government, to stand up and speak out on behalf of the weak and vulnerable, to stand up and speak out against unrighteousness and injustice, like John the Baptist did to Herod. It is time. The second day, the first day Jesus came into Jerusalem during the Passion Week before he was crucified, he came in. Everybody's saying, Hosanna in the highest, and palm branches and all the rest. And he goes straight to the temple, and no one's there. He turns around, walks out, goes out of the city. It's late. Comes back the next day, and it's a bad day. Let me tell you, the next day, on Monday, Jesus goes back to Jerusalem after staying outside the city with his disciples. They come walking back in. There's nothing on the fig tree for him to eat, so he curses the fig tree. He goes back in. He's back into the temple, and everybody's doing this and that and the other thing, trading, turning God's house of prayer into a robber's den. And he starts upturning the tables and throwing everybody out, and essentially policing the temple, saying and barring anybody from bringing goods in to be sold. I can imagine that was a tough day for Jesus. Well, I'm telling you right now, America is facing a tough day. Christians in America are facing a tough day. And we've just got to keep saying the right things. We got to keep doing the right things. We got to keep living the right way. We've got to be that prophetic presence, be that prophetic voice, and not stop. Be faithful. The key to all of this is not, the key to all of this is faithfulness. It's endurance. That's the primary core value. The primary indicator that somebody is in the Lord is that they're faithful in it all. They're faithful to the teaching of Scripture, and unwilling to waver on the truths of what it means to be human under God. This has been Proof of Life. I'm your host, Reverend Jim Harden. Follow, like, and share on all of your favorite podcast platforms. If you have some sort of disgruntled comment, feel free to write a letter in crayon and send it to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Suite LGBTQ, zip code 00666.